Ladies and gentlemen, this is Nate Crespo, your host for today and forever, and welcome back to another episode of the Lawyers in the Making podcast, where it is my job to focus on the unique journeys to the law and law school of professionals in the legal field and law students. But let's talk about what we're doing today, because today we have another incredible guest. She's a University of Tulsa College of Law graduate, currently works as the founder and CEO of Powerhouse Lawyers. She's held past positions as an attorney at Merit Energy Company and as an associate at K&L Gates. Finally, she is the host of the Powerhouse Lawyers podcast. Excited to have her on the podcast today, Mrs. Erin Gerner. Welcome to the podcast. How are we doing? Before going any further, I'd like to say a quick word about the sponsor of this podcast, Rhetoric. Back in episode 25, I had the privilege of having the CEO, Luke Yingling, on the podcast. And ever since that episode, fell in love with the product. Rhetoric takes user briefs and motions and compares them against the text of opinions written by judges to identify ways to tailor their arguments to better persuade the judges handling their cases. Rhetoric's focus on persuasion and helps users find new ways to improve their odds of success through more persuasive arguments. Know more, win more. I was able to see a demo of the product, and its cutting-edge technology and fascinating features make for a product I am proud to sponsor, and further shows the new digital era the field of law has been entering thus far on my journey doing this podcast. If you decide to book a demo, let them know Nate sent you. Be sure to check them out in the show notes below or at userhetoric.com. One word, userhetoric.com. Now, back to the show.
So great. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here.
Well, Erin, I am just as excited to have you here today. Now, Erin, before you get started, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am a mom of two daughters. I have two girls that are 13 and 9. I'm married to my husband, Nick. He is also a lawyer. We met in law school. And like Nate said, I'm the founder and CEO of Powerhouse Lawyers. My legal journey has not been the typical legal journey, but I've definitely come full circle and impacting women in the law and building community and connection for female lawyers is my passion. And so, yeah, I'm a wife, a mom, a coach, an entrepreneur, a multifaceted lady.
Well, Erin, it sounds like you wear many, many hats, and we will be getting into all of those hats. And of course, we'd love to hear that it is not the typical journey, because that's exactly what we love talking about on this podcast. There is no straight path to law or law school, only your unique journey. And we are about to dive in your very, very unique journey. So let's go all the way back to the year 2002. What a great year. I was -1 years old. You were at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. You graduated with a degree in international studies, and then later that same year, you ended up at the University of Tulsa College of Law. So simply put, Erin, why'd you go to law school?
I wish that I had some moving story to tell you about how I've always wanted to be a lawyer and I've dreamt it since I was a little girl. And it's this beautiful culmination of a lifelong dream. I am not in that camp. I am in the camp of people who, did really well in school, were told they were smart their whole life. I really like to read and study. My mom and my parents told me I like to argue. And so I found myself going on to law school so I could have another 3 years to figure out what the hell I wanted to do with myself. Now, it's like to the average listener, you're like, what? You decided to go to another 3 years of law school, like a mountain of debt to take on this, tremendous career just kind of on a whim because you didn't really know what else to do? And the answer to that question is yes. We do a lot of things when we're young and naive and we think like that could be the next best move. But I would love to tell some sexy story about why I became a lawyer, but the honest truth is that I went to law school because people told me I was smart and I was good at school and I liked to argue, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with myself. I had an international studies major. I don't know what the hell I thought I was going to be doing with that. I don't really know what that even means, honestly, all these years later, but that's where we were.
Well, let's go to the first year of law school in 2002. You come in, you're not really sure what you're doing, but you're like, all right, I'm doing this law school thing. Why not? Now, we love talking about the first year. Some people hate it. Some people love it. How was it for you, Erin?
So my law school journey, honestly, and I don't know if I'm in a small camp of people, but I loved law school. I loved school. I am a dork. Like, I love school. I mean, honestly, like if someone was like, hey, do you want to go take like a random class at the university? I would probably be so excited just to go sit in there even today and just like learn. That is who I am. So I succeeded in law school. Like that is, I love to learn, and the law like clicked with my brain, and I did really well in law school. I graduated in the top 10%. But I mean, the first year of law school, yes, was very overwhelming, very stressful. Um, but I remember it was one of the very first times where I felt like I found a community there. Like we had a really great group of friends during law school, and so I felt deeply supported during that time. I also met who would become my husband during that time, so that's helpful. But it was a matter of it was really interesting because after that first year and I had done so well, like it was kind of one of those things where I proved to myself, I was like, maybe I can be a lawyer. Like maybe I'm going to be like really good at this. Like maybe this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Um, so I don't have like traumatic stories from that time of my legal career. I have a lot of traumatic stories that followed. But that year was not traumatic.
Well, Erin, I'll tell you what, if you're interested in taking any undergraduate classes, I'm actually the exact opposite of you. I'm not the biggest fan of school. I've never really liked it, never really loved it. I love learning, but I hate the way school does it. So I got my own way. So if you're interested, you could come take my classes for me, please. I'm in my senior year. I got a couple classes left. You could join. No, I'm just kidding. But in terms of your law school journey and being in law school that first year, how important was having that support system around you of your friends, of your family? How important was having that, ensuring that it didn't get so overwhelming, it didn't get so stressful?
It was huge. I mean, I my husband and I still talk about and laugh like to this day, like studying for exams. Like that sounds like at the time it was not fun. But like I think back and those are some of the best times that we had. Like I think of us in these, like they had these rooms down in the library that you would like rent, and there was a table in there and they had a whiteboard, and we're in there with our laptops and our outlines, and we're doing all this stuff on the whiteboard, and there was a group of us, and I mean it was hilarious. Like we had so much fun, and then when we were done, we went out to the bar and had a few, maybe more drinks. I mean, honestly, those 3 years were some of the best years of my life. I mean, we made lifelong friends, and I think when you get in the trenches like that with people, like those are the people that know you before you're anybody, before you're anybody's lawyer, before you're anybody's mom or dad, before you're anybody's anything, husband, wife. These people know you like at the core of what you're capable of in one of the toughest seasons of your life. And those are really foundational, cool friendships.
What I'll say is so great about this is now I have an extra receipt on the group of people that love law school, had an amazing experience, because I've definitely had a ton of those people on this podcast, but there is also the other camp that absolutely hated it and would never step back for another day into a law school. Now, going forward in your career, following law school after that year, in 2005, you became an associate at Elsie and then you were in the land department at Metro Energy Group. Now, including that and any other internships or externships or law clerkships that you had in law school, and figure out what you wanted to do with the law. We always love talking about on this podcast, finding out what you do want to do in terms of specialization, but also finding out what you don't want to do, being able to narrow down your options. So through those experiences, were you able to narrow down your options and really figure out what you wanted to do with the law?
I wish that I could say that. I think that my early experiences in the law did nothing but further confuse the issue of who I was, what I was supposed to be doing, what this career would look like. Because when I graduated from law school, I didn't immediately have a job. So I went and worked for, like a friend that we graduated from law school with, like his dad owned a firm and outside of where I live. So I went and worked there for a little bit. And then there was like, I did some land work, at some oil and gas work at an, oil and gas company. But all the time I was interviewing, and then I finally got that job at K&L Gates, which was big law. And I'm like, oh, I've struck it big. Like, this is it. Like, this is where I'm supposed to be going. Because I mean, I honestly, even in law school, I did not have a feel for where I wanted to go. This just shows like how maybe this was not the career path for me. Like I was never, nothing ever felt good or right. And maybe that's a common feeling. I don't really know, but I never found like a home base. And then by the time I got to big law, I was simply like drinking from the fire hose. And that's not fun. And, then I went on to another oil and gas company, which was also drinking from the fire hose. I mean, I just never got the opportunity to have someone mentor me or get in a position where I could really grow and hone a skill set to like really hone into a particular area of the law.
So, in moving to being an associate at K&L Gates, getting that big law opportunity, how was working there in that environment, and what were some things that came with it? I know it could be very stressful. You're working very long hours. Can you sort of describe that experience? Because you said before that you had no trauma going throughout law school. It was very, very seamless. You had a very, very good time. You loved it. But later in your career, you came onto some obstacles and roadblocks. Can you talk about those?
Yeah, for sure. My big law experience mirrored probably a lot of big law experiences that many people have. It was a 100% drinking from the fire hose um, situation. I mercifully had a mentor in that the real estate section, and it was a man, because all of the women who worked at that firm were not about empowering the generation coming behind them. It was made very clear early on, like that they were not trying to help anybody or not trying to throw the rope back. So that was interesting. And so getting in big law and seeing like, okay, where am I going? And then looking at the women who were, 2 or 3 steps ahead of me, I was like, oh, I don't want that. Like, that sucks. I was like, I don't want that life. I was like, she is unhappy. She never sees her kids. I was like, that, I don't want to do that. Like, if that's what staying here and being partner means, like, I am out for that. But knowing that and then reconciling that with then what else is the plan? And you don't have a community or a mentor to guide you through that. And so it was a time of like, I know I'm not supposed to be here. Like, this is very unaligned for me, but like, what are the other options? Like, this is what everyone told me that I was supposed to do. This is like the pinnacle of your career. Like, you get the big law job. You're not supposed to then sit in your nice fancy office in a high rise and complain about it. Um, but it never felt aligned. And luckily, I did have that mentor who was able to keep me relatively sane. And then, you know, truth be told, I ended up getting laid off from that position in the '08 and '09 recession. And I honestly think that was like God's way of doing that, because I'm not sure I ever would have left on my own.
So you get laid off. Then 2 years later, you end up as an attorney at Merit Energy Company. And this would be your last attorney job before you would embark on a completely new journey in a completely new field. So, can you talk about that experience and why you decided to leave and embark on this new journey and figure out something else?
Yeah, so I took that job after I had gotten laid off from Big Law. And in hindsight, accepting that job was done very much out of a scarcity mindset of like, I'm not gonna be able to find another job in this environment, so I have to take this job. Not knowing like what the job meant, what the company culture was, what the expectation of me was, what that was going to look like for my future. Like, none of the questions that I now coach, lawyers about awareness on. Like, if we're going to make a move, like, let's ask these questions. Like, what do you really want? All these things. So just leaping into that. And I was made a lot of promises in that job, thinking that there was going to be room for growth where there really wasn't. I ended up becoming a mom in that job. And that really changed the game forever, because I left, one Friday afternoon, went into labor 7 weeks early with my first daughter, like had a very traumatic experience, and then walked back in the office after maternity leave and was like, I'm a completely different person. My values and priorities are completely different, but this environment is still the same. And so, how am I going to now reconcile that in this new position as a mom? And so, that was an interesting and really tough season of really trying to reconcile like the things that I knew I wanted in my heart and soul, which was to be a present, available mom and to have flexibility. But it was running up against the fact that I didn't have any of those things in the job that I currently had. So what do you do with that? So like I said, my legal journey is fraught with like mess and many lessons, but I think that it has all brought me full circle and given me a lot of color on what the women I coach and empower and help go through.
Well, I can't believe because you said something very, very important. You said something that tips me off to something I love talking about. It has snuck its way back into the podcast, the scarcity and growth mindset, that sort of dichotomy. I love talking about it. I've talked about it 6 million times on this podcast, and now we're going to talk about it again. So, can you talk about how important having a growth mindset is just in life itself?
Absolutely. I mean, if you coming from a growth mindset, it's always what's next. I'm a tennis player. I played elite junior tennis growing up, and so I'm a lifelong tennis fan. And so my philosophy is it's always next point. What's next? That didn't work out. What's next? Because when you are grounded and like cemented in your why and why you are here and what you are doing and who you are serving and the value that you add, quitting is not an option. Like it's kind of like how I view my marriage. Like quitting is not an option. And so when that is my mindset and I am that resolute in my why, it is always what's next, not what could happen. Like if I am coming from what could happen, I've got to hold on tight to control and all of this kind of stuff. I am blocking the abundance that is meant to come into my life by closing my mindset off to other opportunities. When you are thinking of the what if and the negative and the scarcity all the time, you've cut yourself off from tons of other opportunity and a way to pivot and think differently. So for me, it is always about growth mindset. What's next? Next point. Like that didn't work out. Okay, what did we learn? And what are we going to do next?
Yeah, I've certainly have my own transformation in mindset going from a scarcity mindset to a growth mindset. I know how life-changing it absolutely can be, and it still is every day a life-changing experience. But are there any practical advice or practical ways that you sort of made that transformation going from a scarcity mindset to a growth mindset?
Well, I think a lot of it, a really easy way to start is the way you are talking to yourself. Your internal monologue is hugely powerful. And a lot of us are just on autopilot all day, going through our day, and we're not stopping, we're not getting quiet, we're not listening to ourselves. And so actually getting still and quiet with your thoughts is huge. And really recognizing how you're talking to yourself, because that's a huge part, because how we think is what we start to believe, and what we believe is how we show up. So that is huge. Also getting clarity and clarity of desire is huge. Like what do you really want? And moving from that space, right, is getting very clear on what you want and where you're operating from is first of all, it's a mindset, and then it's getting into action, right? So the mindset is switching from the scarcity into the positive, into the abundance, is switching that negative talk. And then the second part of it is, how does that person show up? Does that person procrastinate? Does that person not make the post? Does that person not make the phone call? Or does that person get online? Do they show their face? Do they make the phone call? Do they follow up? Like how does that person show up? And that is getting very clear about who you are and where you're going. So yeah, I think it's mindset and action.
Absolutely. And I think when you make that transformation and you become, your mindset becomes more resourceful, you get that growth mindset, you're actually more likely to make more actions because you view them so positively. You're like, listen, if I do this, if I make this call, if I make this email, if I make this post, I know that good things will come from it. Not that, oh my God, what if someone doesn't see it? What if no one says anything about it? Anything like that. Those kind of thoughts are totally pushed out of your mind. And to go to the self-talk point, it's so, so important to have that positive self-talk, because when you have that negative self-talk, you sort of have that negative feedback loop where you're constantly working against yourself rather than working with yourself, where you're just fighting and fighting. And that's where the procrastination comes from, that stagnation. You just stay in one place, you don't take any action. But in terms of this inner, you're really getting to my sweet spot right here. I really love talking about this stuff. But when you get to the inner monologue, when you get to having that self-talk, what are some practical ways to change that self-talk, to become more aware of that self-talk, and to sort of make it like you're talking to a friend? Because I think a lot of times we talk to ourselves, we allow ourselves to get very, very harsh on ourselves, very, very mean, very, very angry towards ourselves. When you think about it, would you talk to your friend like that? No, you absolutely wouldn't. So what are some practical ways that you can make that flip the switch in your head?
Yeah. So I'll just give you some example of things I do because I think this can be unique to every person. And I also think that it's a very simple switch when you figure out what works for you. So I'm a strong Christian and I love to listen to worship music, and getting myself in that mind space is very important for the success of my business and how I operate every single day. And it is very easy to forget who God says I am because my brain is not my friend. And when I am stressed or when I am scared or when I feel doubtful or unsure, my brain is the first to go and find all of the negative and show me all the information why something is not possible. And so it is important for me to always go back to the one and only who knows that it is possible. And I turn on my worship music and I praise Jesus and I get my Bible out and he reminds me who I am. That's one thing that works for me. Another thing that works for me is I drive a lot. We live in the country. I drive in silence a lot. In fact, I tell my clients to do it all the time because we're all driving somewhere, even if it's 5-10 minutes, turn off the radio because your brain has so much decision fatigue every single day, especially as a woman, as a mom, as a lawyer. Like, dude, the decision fatigue starts as soon as our eyes open in the morning, and you do it in the car too. And you're not even realizing what song am I going to listen to? What podcast am I going to listen to? Like this, that, and the other. Put on the Waze, like all this kind of stuff. Turn it off, like put on, fine. If you need your directions, great. But like drive in silence and see what comes up. Another thing I do is I journal. Like I will get a journal out, and like when I am feeling negative about something, like I have a big retreat coming up. And so I am literally writing 20 times. The Powerhouse Lawyers retreat is an unbelievable success. Every woman that is there is blessed and, life changed. Like I am literally writing it down over and over and over and over and over again until I believe it. And that's what it takes. I can't give you like a laundry list of like, go do this today and your self-talk is going to get better. This is a matter of awareness. And once you become aware, what are you going to do to stop that cycle? And it takes practice. It's a muscle. You have to build up the confidence and just to give yourself grace in knowing that we don't get it perfect every day. We have some like high achieving people have like 70 some odd thousand thoughts a day. Odds are a lot of those thoughts are going to be negative, and that's okay. So let's just go ahead and get it off the table that it's going to happen. What are you going to do about it when that starts happening? How are you going to coach yourself through that moment? Because it's okay that they happen. It's not okay if you stay there.
I think there's such a powerful broader point there as well, is people don't realize how influential first our self-talk is, but also the things around us, the things that we listen to, the things that we talk about with other people, the things people talk about with us, even the words that they use. A lot of times, like I'll read a book or I'll read multiple books and it'll be about the same author and I'll start talking and I'll start writing like that author. You don't even realize it. It just gets ingrained in your system and you don't realize how much influence those things have on you and the actions that you make and the self-talk that you have. And of course, having that scarcity mind, so you think, oh, that's a terrible thing. I shouldn't listen to anything. I shouldn't do anything. But you flip that, you reframe that sort of thing. Oh my God, look how much influence I could actually have on myself, trick my mind, trick my brain into thinking those good thoughts, making those good actions, feel good, think good, and do amazing. Exactly. But going back to your career, switching gears a little bit, back in 2018, you became the CEO of your life, sipping tea, beautiful thing. And in doing that, you then started Powerhouse Lawyers. You're the CEO and founder. So can you talk about how you came to found that and why you did it in the first place?
Yeah, so about 7 years ago, I was going back to practice part-time law and was completely miserable doing that. And I found a social selling opportunity. It completely came out of left field. It was a brand new company started by, ironically enough, a former litigator who had left her litigation career and had started this clean crafted wine company, had gone after her vision and her dream. And I'm like, wow, well, first of all, I really love wine and I really love this wine that doesn't give you a headache. And this is kind of amazing that you can like make money this way. Like, this is very interesting to me because in my mind, I'm like, what legal job am I going to find? Right? Like, that's my mindset. So I am in this legal job, and of course I'm going back to like rubbing a raw wound. Like, this is not working. I was going back and like doing work for the big law partner that I had been working for like 10 years. I mean, why I was going back to the same well and expecting a different result was beyond me, but anyway, there we were. And here comes this opportunity. And I think at some junctures in your life, when you don't want something so badly, you are willing to maybe explore other opportunities that you would not have at another point in your life. And that's what this was for me. And so I was like, wait a second, I can go all in and like kind of make money doing this. So I did. I just decided to go all in and see what happened. And what ended up happening was that I put myself in community with other women who were dreaming big, who were creating businesses in a different way, who were making money in a different way, who had a different perspective, who were letting me borrow their belief in me until I believed in myself. Because I am entering this feeling like the lowest I've ever felt in my life. Like, I'm going back to part-time law. I'm a part-time mom. I'm all the time miserable. Like, I don't know what I want to do. That nothing feels good. I feel like I'm a quitter. Like, I'm a half-time lawyer. Like, I left a couple years ago because I couldn't hack it and I had to be a mom. Like, this whole mental crap. But getting into this community and borrowing belief of the people who could see me in a way I couldn't see myself at that time was so empowering. So that was really the start of everything. And I just dove into personal development and I started building my brand within that organization and build a huge team. And what that takes is leadership and then learning how to lead other people to then step up and grow and be the person that can go out there and make additional income for their family. And so I learned not only a ton about coaching, but coach different types, all different types of women in all different types of areas of work and life and all the things. And I finally realized after about 4 or 5 years into that experience, I can brand myself. And Erin Gerner is a brand. Like, I've learned all of these things in a vacuum, which is what is very awesome about a social selling opportunity when done correctly. Like, in a vacuum, you can learn so much about entrepreneurship, and it's just a stepping stone of confidence into everything that can come next. So I kept being surrounded by lawyers, and I had a coach call me forward and say, hey, you really, this is an opportunity for you here to really impact women in the law. And that you have the ability to do that because you are them. Like, I understand you because I am you. And so that was where Powerhouse Lawyers was born. And I just, started showing up in that space and speaking on all the issues that I knew were on my heart. And through conversations with lots and lots of other female lawyers, I knew that I was not alone and just started talking, coaching. I decided to have retreats for female lawyers because I know that community and connection is a huge piece that's missing in the legal profession for women. And so that has been something that has been near and dear to my heart. I launched a podcast. As you can tell, I'm huge about stories, impact, and growth. And so that's really what these last 5, 6, 7 years have been about for me is really figuring out who the heck Erin is and learning and growing and stepping into that version of me so then I can help other women do the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's first a beautiful story, a beautiful way to put things. And of course, in self-discovering yourself, you were actually self-discovering others. You were putting belief in others that was instilling belief in yourself. So finding out about others, you were finding more and more about yourself. It's very weird how the way that the world works. It doesn't make any sense. No logical sense to that, but it's just the way it goes. It's very paradoxical. But you, through your coaching, very much preach that you have to answer the hard questions. You have to force yourself to face the hard questions, which you said that you sort of avoided throughout a lot of your legal career, not facing those hard questions. So can you talk about those hard questions and why you got to answer them in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, I really think that the quality of the questions that you ask yourself reflects the quality of your life. And you have to ask yourself hard questions. And for me, and for most every, I think, woman that I work with or really out there, that hard question is, what do you really want? You. Not what everybody else wants, not what you think you should want, not what the law tells you to want, not what society tells you to want, not what your parents want, not what your religion wants, all of these things. I think that is the ultimate difficult question. It sounds like an easy question, like, what do you want? And I remember when my coach asked me that the first time, I was like, what do you mean? Like for dinner? I mean, I don't know. Like, no one's ever asked me that before. What do I want? Like, no one gives a shit what I want. That was my mentality at the time. I was like, nobody cares what I want. Like, I'm a mom, like I am on the last on the totem pole. But that was the first time of really, flipping that level of thinking on its head and being like, what I want matters most. Because once I know that, then I can build a life that feels good to me and have the impact and break the generational curses and wounds for my daughters to show them what's possible. So yeah.
Oh, that was a great way to put it there. Breaking those generational curses, making sure that you're living the best life, so your daughters can live the best life, and then when they live the best life, their kids live the best, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. It's a beautiful way to put it, and it is the way that things go. Now, you spoke about before that you have retreats. You have the Powerhouse Lawyers retreat. So can you talk about that? What do you do there? And what sorts of things are you doing to empower the women of the legal industry through this retreat?
Yeah, so the retreat is really an opportunity for female lawyers to come together and get out of their hectic life in law, which is honestly the first and really, if I'm being honest, the most crucial step to all of this is getting you out of your normal habitat. Because even in our normal habitat where we've made commitments and promises to ourselves and the way we operate, and we think that we're filling our cup or whatever, there is something about getting outside of your everyday environment, shutting all of that off and coming to a place where you can actually think clearly and no one needs anything from you, for the most part. So that's the first part, is getting them, into a serene place where they can think and get clarity and realign. And then what we do from there is, obviously there's coaching and collaboration that happens from that point. Coaching from my perspective, and then I'm also bringing in supplemental coaching and experts to help these women level up in their law life and in their personal life. And then really the most magical thing that happens is the resonance and the connection that happens with these women. It's like 13-year-old teenagers, like every retreat, like in the morning, everyone wakes up and they're like, is it weird that we're besties overnight? Like, we're overnight besties. Like, is that weird? Is that weird? I've never known you before today, but now I love you. And like, that is literally what happens with these women, because we've been looking and craving these relationships for our entire career. And it just furthers my point that you need to have community for every aspect of your life, your church community, your neighborhood community, your family of origin, like whatever that is, but you need to have a professional community. Especially as lawyers, you have to have somewhere to take everything that we have that we're dealing with and be able to take that and put it somewhere and know that it's normal and that we can overcome it, and that there is somebody else out there that can support us, and that we don't have to just trudge through the slush alone. There's so much power in that. So it is really about the bringing them, getting them quiet and realigned, the coaching and collaboration that happens, and then the wicked masterminding and level upping that happens, because all these women come in and then you feel comfortable and you're like, okay, I've got this dream. This is kind of what's been happening. Like, now I want to get legs underneath this thing. Like, it's like just that little dose of extra confidence that you need to trust yourself to keep growing and expanding.
Yeah, it's such a great sentiment to put out there, because at the end of the day, you are what you eat, not actually what you eat, but the people around you, those around you and what they do, the things that you do and the people around you are usually the result of what comes out in your life, the quality of your life. So having these opportunities, to have these networking opportunities, to have these opportunities for women to meet each other, voice their dreams, express their dreams, and have that communal feel just makes them feel much more powerful than they were before because they have the adequate resources around them. And then they, from that, realize how resourceful they are themselves and how powerful they are and how they can move all the mountains that they want regardless of if they got the support system or not. And it's just such a beautiful thing you're doing, Erin. I think it's wonderful. I think it's amazing the way that you're empowering these women lawyers. It's just a great thing. Now, of course, you do even more because you are the host of the Powerhouse Lawyers podcast. Now, can you talk about the podcast, why you started it, and what do you talk about on there?
Well, clearly, I love to chat. I mean, just give your girl a mic here and we can just carry on. But I know I have a gift for pulling stories out of people and for seeing other people's superpowers and then putting them on display to the world. That's a gift that I have and I love it. And also I'm obsessed with people and obsessed with stories. I always have been. Storytelling, my Uncle Mike was one of the best storytellers ever. And I think it's just like imprinted on me since childhood just to love stories. Also from the South, like we love a good story. Get your sweet tea on the porch and we'll tell. But anyway, I knew that even, through coaching, through the retreat, I still wanted to have more impact. And, really just felt like the way to do that was to start a podcast. And a lot of people think that it's this super complicated thing. And I just want to empower you right now. If you're listening to this podcast, it is not that hard. You just need to order the damn microphone and plug it up in your computer and press record. Like that's all you need to do. It's just messy action. It's not this huge complicated thing. But I will say my mic set in the box for 6 months while I worked up the courage to start the podcast. But the reason why I started is because I wanted to have more impact. And I knew that through all the conversations that I was having, there were stories to tell and there was power in stories. And if someone listening to my podcast can listen and resonate with a story that empowers her with the knowledge that she's not alone, that she's not crazy, and that, there is a different and better way, then that is what I aim to do through that podcast. So, and it's really fun. Women lawyers are some of the smartest, most creative, like ninjas that I have ever met in my life. I mean, it is so wild. I have the best seat in the house. I say it all the time that I just get to bring women on and they tell their incredible stories and journeys on how they've navigated this profession and made it work for them. I love it. It's so much fun.
Law students, are you feeling overwhelmed, stressed, or short on time in law school? Maybe you just want someone to show you a step-by-step framework to master the topics you're learning in your classes. I know the pressure you're under, and I've got the perfect solution for you. My course, The Law School Operating System, is proven to help you conquer law school with confidence and ease.
Created by Lisa Blasser, a former guest on the podcast and founder of the Law School Success Institute, this course breaks down every subject into manageable main topics that you run through a comprehensive study system to thoroughly prepare you for class and final exams. No more feeling like you need to know everything all at once in the beginning.
But that's not all, Nate. The Law School Operating System also teaches you how to schedule your studying and time effectively. For every topic, you'll know which study step you're on and when you'll complete it every week of your semester. No more mad dash cram sessions, more time with your loved ones. And with my system, you'll walk into your exams knowing you've given 100% of yourself, that there's nothing more you could have done to succeed, and there's no better confidence than that.
Lisa breaks it down like this: one class, one list of main topics, and one system to master each topic. With recorded and live sessions for students available on her website and partnerships with law schools nationwide, the Law School Operating System is here to help you thrive from day one to the final exam. Ready to take control of your law school journey and operate at your full potential in law school? Visit www.lisablasser.com today and enroll in the Law School Operating System. Be sure to use code LSOSNATE10 at checkout for 10% off the recorded course. That is code LSOSNATE10 at checkout. Now, back to the show. I mean, of course, I have to agree because I do very similar work here, Erin. And to your point, the podcast thing is not that difficult. I myself bought a microphone. It was the cheapest microphone on Amazon. It's the stupid Yeti mic. I'm trying to get a new one eventually, but it was only like $60. if you have a laptop, you're already like 3/4 of the way there. If you got Zoom, you're all the way there. There you go. You got a
You got
podcast.
to show. You got to show.
So that just like that. And I love the way how specific your podcast is that you're getting these stories out to put ambition into other people, to make them feel powerful, to make them feel like they can achieve the dreams that they want. And that's such a wonderful thing. That is a beautiful thing in itself. But Erin, we're now down to our last 5 questions. The first of the 5 questions is something I've seen throughout my entire journey doing this podcast. And I'll try to frame it in a way where it supports you in answering this question, but it is sort of the tech stack question per se. There's all these new technologies, AI software, whatever they may be. But what is your tech stack, even if it's very, very simple? And what recommendations do you have for people in terms of any technology that you use that helps you in your daily life, your professional life, or anything like that?
Yes. So I love AI. AI is a great, like it's a great like help for me, because I even will go so far as to like talk in there. Like if I've got a thought, I will be like, I have this thought about blah, 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 blah. And it, give me 10 post ideas for this. And so that to me simplifies and takes so much pressure off of me, especially as a freaking recovering perfectionist who wants everything to be perfect and is, a recovering people pleaser and doesn't want anybody to like think it's got to be this Pulitzer Prize winning post or whatever. It's been realizing that is not what's necessary. It's just taking my own words and figuring out a way that I can best utilize technology to make me more efficient. So that's 100% scheduling. I mean, if you're not scheduling your posts on LinkedIn and Instagram, it's freaking free. Like you can do that. It's so easy. But yeah, I use Chat GTP to help me like supplement that. I would love to say I have like a huge tech stack. Like I am not that girl. But I'm doing the best I can. Like I love Cut Story, where you can, do shorter form videos. A lot of people love Riverside for doing the same thing, like taking longer form videos and then, condensing them down to like shorter form videos that you can share. One of my things that I'm doing lately, because I don't have time to like sit around and like film a reel and like take my camera outside and like do all this other business. Like I just turn my camera on and start filming B-roll, like just me like doing random shit in my day. And it's so easy. You just turn on the camera and start filming yourself. And then you can just clip that and go back and use it for reels later. So if you are a busy mom and you're like, I don't have the TikTok dance. Like I'm not doing that. Like that. I'm not doing that. You don't have to do that. Just do what you do every single day, turn on the camera and then post it. Like there's just a lot of ways to work smarter, not harder.
I couldn't agree more with that. I am a lover of AI myself. I've been using ChatGPT for a very, very long time. It's almost been like 5 years now that I've been using ChatGPT, but I love it so much in terms of creating ideas, just sort of taking my thoughts and spitting it into it and see what comes out on the other side. And maybe I like some of it, maybe I don't like some of it. And then if I don't like any of it, I could okay, give me 5 more. Let's see what happens. So I think it's great for that. It's an amazing tool to be used in terms of your thinking, in terms of just voicing out ideas, getting the stuff from your head and getting it onto the page.
Yeah, it just gets you out of your own way. Like that's what I think. It just gets you out of your own way. Like there's no more excuses that you can't think of what to post. That's no longer an excuse. Like if you're like, I don't know what to post, bullshit. Like that is literally like, that's a lie from the pit of hell. And you know that it is. Like that is procrastination has taken over your mindset, right? Like there is no excuse. And I like that. Like it literally, that tool is like there, you can get out of your own way. Like there's no excuse.
I mean, Erin, I love the brilliance of your no nonsense mindset over here, but it's true. It is completely true. It's the absolute truth. And as well, the B-roll videos, I gotta start getting into that. I've never done any of that. And the scheduling of the posts. I usually like to do it where I, post all them at the same time, but maybe I start scheduling it, make some changes, make it easier on myself. See, Erin, you're giving me ideas right now, things I didn't even know. So I'm learning over here. I'm learning so much. But for the last question here, Erin, live on the Lawyers in the Making podcast, what are your book recommendations for people? Doesn't have to be about the law, just some of your favorite books something you give a gift to someone.
Okay, so one book, the one I'm reading right now is Don't Give the Enemy a Seat at Your Table, which is amazing. I also love the book. What is it's the Dr. Nicole De La Perla book. I can't even remember the title right now. The Power of One More by Ed Milet is like literally one of my all-time favorite books. Like if you have not read that book, you need to go run out and get it right now.
I will.
Power of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. It was like one of the huge books for me in entrepreneurship. The Go-Giver. If you haven't read The Go-Giver, everyone needs to read The Go-Giver. Yeah, so those are some of my book recommendations.
Well, I thought they were all spectacular because I don't know any of them. So now I got new books to read. Such a wonderful thing. I always love new books to read. They will be in my Amazon cart later today and will be on my way to my house. So that is spectacular. But Erin, now we're down to our third question, which is what are sorts of things that you consume, not food, consume on a daily basis, either that be through social media, so Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Reddit, any podcasts that you listen to that you recommend to people, any people on Substack you recommend, any people on LinkedIn you would recommend. What is crossing the transom of Erin's mind on a daily basis?
Well, so I just read off like my professional development books that I read, but I'm also like an avid reader of basically a good beach read, a mystery novel. Like I love a true crime podcast. Like it's going out of style. And I know I'm not the only one, but I love a good true crime podcast. Let's see, what else am I consuming on a daily basis? I do love a personal development podcast. So, I mean, I've got tons that I listen to. I'd have to like open up my podcast right now. But yeah, so I'm always listening to a good podcast, always reading a good book, always listening to worship music, always like in my devotional, I have like several devotionals that I use. I wish I had I mean, I'm a boring, not boring, but I mean, there's nothing like grand that's coming across my plate on a daily basis. In fact, I try and stay off the internet as much as I can because I will get down the rabbit hole. Like I have been known to just like scroll and get down the rabbit hole. And then the comparison thing comes out. I'm like, oh my God, she just had a launch for 100K. No, abort mission. So I don't do a lot of that.
Well, Erin, I'll say that there is great beauty in simplicity. So do not worry. It is not a boring list. I found it very, very fascinating. All the podcasts, the personal development podcasts, the worship music, your devotionals, all that fun stuff. It's beautiful things, but they're very, very simple. But sometimes you got to keep it simple. You don't want so much going into your head where you don't even know what's going on. And now you're on the rabbit hole. You're down the rabbit, abort mission once that starts happening. But second to last question here, Erin. You got your coaching business, you're doing your podcast, you got your retreats. But what does an ideal Friday night and Sunday morning look for Erin?
Oh my gosh. If ideally, I would not be in my house. I would be at the beach. Like the beach is my happy place. If ideally I would be on the beach, but if I were just home hanging out, it would be like dinner with my husband, my kids, us watch a show like on the TV. We live in small town Texas, so we have a lot of Friday night lights coming up. So I don't really know if my Friday night will be spent on a couch for the next couple months, but nonetheless. And then a Sunday is going to church with my family, going to lunch, and then coming back and like swimming in the pool or just doing something with my kids where we're all together. The girls are 13 and 9, and I feel like I'm holding on to the last days of when they like care about us.
Well, I mean, listen, I remember the days when I was a teenager. So it may happen, it may not happen, but eventually just got to cut them loose a little bit and let them do their own thing. But I love the swimming in the pool. Of course, the beach is an amazing thing. I come from Long Island, so I'm surrounded by the beach all over the place. So I am preaching the beach talk. I love it very much. A good book on the beach. Oh my goodness. I am the happiest man on earth.
I just want the quiet and the peace and the tranquility, and I just want to slow down and like shut out everything. That's what makes me happy.
And the waves crashing. Oh my god, Erin, you got
It's
me
my
thinking.
favorite. It's where my soul is most at ease.
Erin, I might just get in my car after this podcast and go find a beach. There is no beaches up here in Albany, but a couple hours down the line, I could go find a beach. Why not? But Erin, we are down to our last question. I ask this at the end of every single podcast, every single guest. But Erin, what are your words of wisdom for the aspiring law students, the current law students, and the legal professionals out there in the world?
I think my inspiring words would be to, no matter where you are right now or how everything feels right now, I just want you to know that everything is going to turn out better than you could have ever expected. Your only job is to keep believing in yourself and putting one foot in front of the other. There is not a straight line to success. There is not a laid out path to success. Know that it is going to be filled with ups and downs, and that is okay. It's okay to pivot. It's okay to change. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to not want something anymore. But just know, regardless of how scary or unsure or doubtful or whatever you're feeling right now, that every single thing is going to turn out better than you could ever imagine, because everything is not happening to you, it's happening for you.
And that is the beauty and power of self-belief. But Erin, that is the podcast. That is the episode. So thank you so much for coming on here, spreading your wisdom, spreading your experiences. And for everyone out there listening, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to check us out, lawyersinthemaking.substack.com, lawyersinthemaking, one word, substack.com. And I will see all of you in the next one.